Developers behind games like The Last of Us 2, Star Wars The Old Republic, and Control have weighed in on the difficulty of developing doors in games. Turns out, putting something as simple seeming as doors into a video game is really hard, even for big studios like Naughty Dog. A conversation on Twitter about doors began when Death Trash developer Stefan Hoffelbrinks tweeted the following about implementing doors in games. Doors are complicated to have in games and have all sorts of possible bugs, mostly because they're a dynamic funnel and block in the pathfinding, potentially locked, potentially destructible, but in general because they sit potentially between any game interaction or character-to-character situation from here to there. AAA devs hate them too. The Assassin's Creed series, otherwise full of stuff, doesn't have them, so when a small indie developer adds them to their first game, having combat and non-combat situations as well as multiple input/movement schemes, it was a lot of pain. To summarize, doors push players into small areas, block their paths, but unlike walls, have a lot of other potential problems such as being locked or unlocked, being able to be destroyed, and thus no longer being there anymore, and more. Boss Fight design director and former BioWare Austin designer Damian Schubert also weighed in, describing in more detail what these issues can entail. For example, NPCs might not be able to find their way through a space because of how doors interact with their paths, or if they try to use the door at the same time as an NPC or a player. Plenty of other developers had things to say about doors. Remedy gameplay designer Sergei Mohov, for example. I don't exactly know how many man-months went into the door system in Control, but more than most abilities and weapons for sure. There are visual problems too, related to doors clipping through other objects or getting stuck, or related to the animation of a player reaching out to open said door. The Last of Us 2 co-director Kurt Margenau also chimed in to note that even Naughty Dog had its own struggles with doors. We knew that doors in a stealth scenario would add some level of player authorship to the space and give more opportunities to escape situations. They block line of sight and slow enemies down. This was in line with wanting the player to re-establish stealth more often. But we are also a game that is incredibly polished animation-wise. If a player is going to open a door, it can't just magically fly open, the character has to reach to the doorknob and push it open. But what about closing it behind you? How do you do that while sprinting? We played around with several prototypes to allow the player to manually close the door behind them. They were all not great. We tried holding buttons, all kinds of weird schemes. Then how do you animate it? Don't want to suck the player into an animation while escaping. Long story short, in combat tension, the doors will slowly automatically close. This is the most player favoring, as player door opening slows you down very little. We don't even take control away, but they block AI more effectively. Margenau went on to add that effectively, Naughty Dog had to create an entire new physics object, the door, that players can push, but that can also push the player. An enormous challenge for any studio. It's always interesting to get a peek through the keyhole and get a handle on how games are made. Who would have thought that developing doors would be such a tricky problem for developers to unlock? Especially in games like The Last of Us where so much hinges on realism. Sorry, that's enough door puns for me, I'm just being a knob now. Lock me up and throw away the key. If you want even more on doors, then why not check out the bizarre story behind the iconic Resident Evil lab door sound effect?